All right, everybody, welcome in the first hockey stream of the year. It just feels right, and I've got Freudy alongside me. Not a better person to really get this show going for the upcoming NHL season. For those who don't know, start date October 10th. If you've been following Freudy on Twitter, you've seen we've already been betting on some NHL. Preseason's hasn't been treating me as well as it's been treating you from what I've seen, but.
I've been hitting some decent preseason bets, but again, I'm also not putting like any money on this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's more so just to watch and enjoy. And I'm gonna get 1,500 DMs anyway if I don't put it out there. So I might as well, whatever.
Yeah,
But
exactly. That's the one thing with like preseason. I'm like, when I placed like my first bet, which was like the Habs last week against the Sens, because you just wait for the lineups essentially, right? If you're following the beat writers, you can kind of get a good idea of what group they're rolling out there. And after the Habs one, I'm like, man, this is gonna be so easy. This is what I'm gonna do for the rest. And then I did Blackhawks 3-way money line when Bedard played his first game. They lost in overtime, and then the Flames on Friday was fucked. I don't know how that didn't hit, but
yeah, me either.
we're here to talk regular season, real hockey, talk some NHL futures. So it'll be about a 30-minute show of what we're going to do. We're going to talk some Stanley Cup futures off the top. Then we'll do division winners or make or miss the playoff bets, and then any regular season point totals, and then player futures at the end. So people can get their prize pick squares in and everything else. And yeah, feel free to drop some questions throughout. I'll be keeping an eye on chat. I'm sure Freudy will too. So, but yeah, let's get right into it, Freudy. What are you looking at in terms of Stanley Cup futures? To be honest, like this, obviously, because the odds are as long as they are, these are going to be the ones that I have the fewest amount of units on personally.
Yep.
I don't know if you're kind of in the same boat, but where's your head at, and how do you kind of take your stab at Stanley Cup futures?
Yeah, so last year and this year I'm definitely have to approach it a little bit differently. 2 years ago I won a ton of money because I had so many different futures on the Avs. And last year I was like, oh, I'm gonna just double down, and I took pretty heavy on the Canes and the Avs, and obviously neither even made it to the cup. So I was a little down bad on those, so I need to definitely tone back the units on Stanley Cup futures. I will say before the summer, or I guess right when hockey ended, I took Canes and Avs half a unit each, at a little bit higher odds than they are now. I truly, for both of those, I don't think there's any value in either of those right now, because when I like to take Stanley Cup odds, if you're taking under plus 1,000, for me, I feel like it's almost not worth it. And the way that they're doing odds right now, I think they got hoed so badly 2 years ago and 3 years ago, that the top five teams are all under plus 1,000. I haven't seen that ever. So
Yeah, no, it is definitely different this year. I've been looking at FanDuel, and then even on DraftKings and stuff, it's crazy too. I feel like every book that you're looking at, there's a different favorite, more or less. Like right now, Colorado's the favorite on FanDuel, but Carolina's the favorite on DraftKings. I'm sure Caesars has different odds as well.
Caesars has the Leafs with Hurricanes.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
It's really like a pretty big variance of where, depending on where you're betting. I kind of did the same thing as you. I bet the Hurricanes like pretty much right when the season ended or close to it. I got 14-1 at Bet365. They're like 1,000 to 850 everywhere else, I would say now. So I'm happy with that. And my thinking for the Hurricanes this year is like their defense is probably the best in the NHL now after picking up Orlov and Tony DeAngelo. Like it's just from top to bottom. You have offensive defensemen, and then you have stay-at-home defensemen, and like guys like Brett Pesce. Even like a guy like Brady Shea's like has a rocket shot on that second power play, even played on that first power play a little bit last year, and could still play really solid defensively. And then
when your third pairing is Orlov DeAngelo,
yeah,
that's gonna be their third pairing.
It's nuts. And DeAngelo will probably be, because I think one of the biggest concerns for Brind'Amour last year was their power play was like super average. It was like, I think in the 20, ranked somewhere in like the 20s last season. So I think bringing back DeAngelo was a really big focus point for Brind'Amour and that group, and like being able to like have someone who's a defenseman that can also quarterback it really well alongside Brent Burns. So I think that was the thinking there. And then picking up Bunting, as much as people might not think it's a huge thing, I think it's big on a line with someone like Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Seth Jarvis, because you have a guy who can go get the puck in the corners. And then if Kotkaniemi has the puck in front of the net or somewhere, anywhere that he can really find Seth Jarvis or near the net, which is where those guys are pretty much their best. I think that'll really help their ability to score. And then obviously you get Svetch back and some other players too. So,
Svetch, Teravainen coming back. I mean, that's going to be. I think they do swap Aho back and forth with Kotkaniemi for first and second center, and just kind of play off those guys' strengths. But having Bunting grinding in the corner so Aho doesn't have to do that, as well as play defense, is, I don't know, that line could be gross. So, but yes, I really do like the Canes. I hate that they're the top favorite. Do you have any value like Stanley Cup futures? Anyone above like plus 1,500 that you're even going to put any dollars on at all?
So I like the Kings. I like the Kings at like, I think they're 22-1, 20-1 at FanDuel and DraftKings right now. It's kind of goes back to, if I look at this Vegas team from last year, for one, like the West, we were saying it, and I said a lot with my buddies, like the West is just so much weaker than the East. The East is definitely going to be the team that's going to have the Stanley Cup winner. But when you play all those really hard teams in the East, like anything can kind of change on a dime, and you'll see a team get swept, or, see a team like Florida make it all the way to the Stanley Cup final. Like, it's just very unpredictable. So I feel like a team like LA, really solid defensive unit as well. Mikey Anderson and Drew Doughty complement each other really well. You have Gavrikov and Matt Roy complement each other really well. And even that third pair now with Brandt Clark, who I think will probably be higher up in that top 6 by the end of the season or midseason. Like, we saw Jonas Korpisalo, who is really not that great in Columbus, and that LAD and how their offense is structured made him look a hell of a lot better than I think he is, to be honest. And
I think the Sens starting goaltender?
The Sens starting goaltender. Yes, exactly. I think Cam Talbot, they're going to make Cam Talbot look a lot better than he is. Same with Phoenix Copley. He's not that good, but we saw him go through stretches last year where he was like goalie of the month and all this shit. So I don't think like goalie situation is as big of a concern as some people might think when you have such a good defensive unit in front of you. And Todd McClellan's a great coach. Like, Aiden Hill's a good goalie, but he's not Connor Hellebuck or Igor Shesterkin or Ilya Sorokin. Like, he's not fantastic. So that's kind of why I like the Kings, and that Pacific Division, can kind of go either way with teams like Edmonton in it, Calgary. I really like the Kings. Who else do you have kind of that it's a little bit later or further down the board?
I've looked at that a little bit. And God, I want to hit myself in the head just for saying this, but at plus 2,000, I cannot deny the just pure, value that I think the Stars have.
Okay.
Still think the Avs win that division. But I think Stars win the wild card. I think if they can get through the Avs, I think they're going to the Cup this year. Like, I don't think Vegas is I don't think Vegas is gonna kind of repeat there. The Oilers have obviously kept busting over again. And their big thing with the Stars was, they have the goaltending, they didn't have the defense. And I think that another full year it was Harley, Hakanpää, Lindell, Lundqvist, like those guys, those young guys, they get another solid full year under their belts. It's going to be a tough playoff team to beat, dude. That's going to be a tough playoff team to beat, in my opinion. So I'm going to definitely keep my eye on them. I do think they're worth a little bit. I hate the Stars. Like, I hate the Stars. So that sucks to say. But looking at just pure value, like, really no one stuck out to me. So I do really like that. But other than that, I'm probably going to wait until like All-Star break. That's when I make my larger Stanley Cup bets anyway. Preseason's a little hard. I put quite a bit last year before the season even started and didn't do anything with it. So it was just straight donations. So
Landon, I didn't say you were dumb. Okay, relax. I said it's not my favorite bet, and I'll be honest. I'll tell Freudy the same thing. This Dallas team, like they're deep, like top to bottom, in terms of forwards. Like, even adding Matt Duchene now, like looking at their lineup right now, just on Daily Faceoff and how it's constructed, it looks great. But for one, I think their power play was like almost overperformed last year. It was hitting at like a 30+% rate at the end of last year, and into the playoffs as well. And then like Audie's kind of like he was super inconsistent at the end of last year and in the playoffs. So that concerns me a little bit as well, especially with kind of the defensive unit that they have. It's like a wait and see thing for me to see like how DeBoer takes this group and how they play in front of the rest of these guys. Like Thomas Harley, super young, has a lot of potential, kind of same thing. Esa Lindell in that same kind of boat. So I just wonder if that defensive unit is experienced enough or ready to really carry that full load all the way through the West and play those teams like Vegas and win stuff. But they certainly have the firepower up front in their top six. Like we saw that last year. And Wyatt Johnson for another year, I think will be great. I think Robertson, like under points or goals, is actually like a decent look, to be honest.
He way overperformed.
100% way overperformed. So that's one angle I would kind of look at the Stars. But and now, like you got them at, you said 20-1 or plus 2,000.
Yeah,
They're like 13-1 now on FanDuel. Like I wouldn't take that now. I would wait.
I would not take that now. Holy shit, no. Caesar still has him at 1,900. That's why I was like, okay.
FanDuel's Stanley Cup odds are generally a lot lower, I find, than a lot of other places. I don't know how they can do that. But
yeah, I don't know. I think it's because you can actually parlay them on there. You can't on Caesars or
oh,
BetMGM.
true.
You can't put it with anything. So, like, yeah, you can do whatever MLB winner, NBA winner, and NHL winner. You can do all that stuff together. So, I will say, I guess I'll preface it with I'm not betting them to win the division, and I'm not betting their over points for the season. I just think that they will definitely make at least a wild card. I mean, I think they'll be at least second or third in that division. And I think they have the playoff goaltending and goal scoring to do well in the playoffs.
Okay.
I don't think their over points is free. I don't think that win the division is free. We'll see how the regular season goes, but they're a scary playoff team. So
okay. Yeah, no, those are good points as well. Those are good points as well. Okay, looking at maybe some other types of futures, if you have like a division winner or like a make the playoffs or even point. I don't really actually have any point totals yet. Like the one I was looking at really early was Arizona. Kind of just intrigued me because I want to have like a little bit of stock in that team because I think they're kind of fun. But my favorite one, and I tweeted it last week, Lightning to miss the playoffs at plus 145. I think there's still plus 130s hanging around. For one, there's teams in the East now that are starting to get a hell of a lot better. Ottawa being one of them, Buffalo. Now, I don't necessarily think Detroit's a playoff team yet, but I think they're going to be better than they were last year. So I think there's just a lot more competition. And the Lightning are starting off on the wrong foot for me. Like you have the contract turmoil with Stammer, like a long tenured Lightning who's been your captain for years. Vasi's out for 2 months. Can't remember the last time we've seen Andre Vasilevsky out for a 2-month stretch for this team. Like I feel like that's a huge blow for them, especially your starting goalie now is Jonas Johansson, whose career goals against average in the NHL is like 4 or 3.5. And then I think they're a little top heavy in terms of like they have that first line of great like Braden Point, Stammer, Kucherov, but looking at their second line right now, at least it's Cirelli, Hagel, and Connor Sheary. Like that doesn't instill a lot of confidence in me. And then losing McDonough last year, we saw it really hurt them defensively. Vasilevsky's numbers were at an all-time low over the last 3 years. And I think that's the reason why. Like, I don't really have a ton of faith in guys like Nick Perbix or Eric Chernak, Calvin DeHaan's on their last pair with Zach Bogosian as well. I feel like this is definitely great value if you're getting it at plus 145, plus 130 for a team to kind of miss the playoffs. That's been so good. Like, I feel like this could be a team or a year where they kind of retool, not a full rebuild, but just like look at different ways of how they can be better kind of next season.
Yeah, the amount of hating on the Lightning for you is very similar with me to a different team in that division. Okay. And I am full fade in players make the playoffs, fit division, everything for this team.
I hope.
And they were the best team ever last year. So the Bruins.
Okay.
Bruins to not make the playoffs plus 225. Bruins under 105 points. Ullmark under 26.5 wins.
I like that.
Pasta under 47.5 goals. Those came into this call. Those might be 4 of my favorite of everything this year. I understand they got James Van Riemsdyk, but their first line, I mean, they have Pavel Zacha as a first line center now. Like, I mean, how many assists, big face-off wins, PP kills did Bergeron have? Like, I mean, people are so, and Orlov as well, having him added, he might have been the biggest add to any team last year whatsoever. And now we're talking about a team that has, I mean, their first 2 lines would be decent, but I mean, your third line, we're talking like I don't know, Jesper Boquist, or it's probably AJ Greer, Geeky, and Frederick, if I had to guess, something along those lines. But that in this division where the Panthers are going to be nasty again, the Leafs got better, the Sabres got way better, the Senators got way better, the Wings might make a playoff spot, the Habs keep getting better. Like that is just a ridiculous line to say they're going to get 100 points again when last year the third place team didn't even get 100 points. So, um, and I think that the entire team, once Pasta got to about 30 goals, less than halfway through the season, was just feeding him to get as many goals as humanly possible. They're not going to do that again because he's not going to start off that hot. Um, and I'm sorry, Olmark's not going to have just 6 losses again or whatever it was. That was the most ridiculous stat of all time because their D were so good and they were just playing dominant hockey. So, all of those lines I think are set way too high in my opinion. I don't hate the Bruins by any means. I just think that after being the best team ever regular season hockey, they're getting a little bit too much credit in my head. So
Yeah,
those
I
were the
think
ones I was looking at.
I think those are all really good points to bring up. Like Bergeron and Krejci, losing both of those guys, two guys that have been your first and second line centers essentially for the past, I don't know, 8 years rather consistently. Obviously, Krejci took that
Yeah.
1 year off, but still, like it's a huge blow. And like you said, going from them to Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle as your top two centers, I think people are might underestimating how much of a change that might take, especially on guys like David Pastrnak. And the fact that his point total is, or his goal total is at 47.5 after scoring 61. I think you could, sports books are no, he's due for like a little bit of regression. And it's not even like regression. It's just more of a realistic season, really, to put it into terms. And then for Allmark and Swayman, like I think Swayman could even take over the net this year. I think Swayman is a better goalie than Linus Allmark. And he's younger. He's a little bit younger. He had a great career at, I think he's at Northeastern, or might have been someone else. But
Swayman or Olmark?
no, Swayman. I thought he played
Um,
but maybe not.
I think it was Maine, but
Oh, okay. Could have been that too. uh,
um,
but he's
yeah.
Swayman had a great year last year. So I feel like this year they might even do a bigger split because Allmark just got really hot. And obviously they were like, okay, let's maybe like win this guy the Vesna. So I think this year will definitely be a little bit different. So I can get behind that. I think there's a little bit of a power shift going on in the Eastern Conference this year. So I could definitely see that happening. Okay,
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting season for the East, I think. So,
let's get into some other maybe player futures. I know a lot of people in the chat like definitely want like these for the season long prize pick squares. You can even play these on sports books a lot of the time now. Like FanDuel has cool point totals in terms of like a player to get 70 plus points, 80 plus points, 90 plus points, 100 plus points. I was looking at some of those even before the show. So what's your, other than maybe the pasta under goals, what's your favorite kind of prop?
so two that I've been battling back and forth with. The first one is I honestly three. Two, I guess two unders and two overs, but the unders are whatever. The overs will go with the first one's gonna be Larkin over 76.5 points. I absolutely love this line. Last year, their team was obviously pretty dog meat. And he was out there for almost everything you could say. He had 79 points, I'm pretty sure, 79, 78. And this year he's playing with DeBrincat. I think that'll take away a little bit from his goals. He's not going to have 30 plus goals. Maybe he'll have 30 plus goals again, but I think this is going to add to his assists where he's going to have 60, 70 plus assists instead of 40. And I think that he could get 75, 80% of this line just passing the puck. First line, obviously, first power play, and this is going to be a Wings team that's going to be in contention. And I still think their goaltending isn't all too hot. So this is a team that I think is going to need to score more goals. And I think he's going to be a prime position to do that and be on the ice for those. And more often than not, he's going to have one of those assists, I think. So I think 76.5 is a little low. I don't know how they lowered it from last year. It definitely sketches me out that they lowered it a little bit from last year, but I think he's sitting at mid 80s, lower 90s this season for sure.
Yeah, I've said the exact same thing in every single cherry picking fantasy hockey video this year that I've been able to talk about Lucas Raymond, Larkin, or DeBrincat because I think this line you complement each other like perfectly. You have DeBrincat, who's a pure goal scorer, has had 40 plus goal seasons twice in his career. Larkin's like a 5-tool player, can pretty much do everything. And then Raymond's like a pure playmaker. And last year, didn't have a pure goal scorer to play with. Larkin isn't like that guy. Now you have DeBrincat, who can be the target man on the power play and just on your first line and 5-on-5 play. So I think that prop's a slam dunk. I really like someone who had a really bad year last year. I like Huberdeau to go over his points this year. I don't know what the line is on Prize Picks, but on FanDuel you could play 80 plus at plus 135.
That's not bad.
His last five, like I think this year he's going so late in fantasy hockey drafts, but his last 5 seasons, he's hit this in 2 of them. And one of the seasons he missed, he finished with 78 points. He had his lowest shooting percentage over his last season, 6 seasons last year with the Flames. It was like below 12%. He had 100 less shots than he did this prior season with Florida. Obviously, completely 2 different teams with Florida and Calgary. But now with Daryl Sutter out of the picture, like I think he was just like so old school and you can't get more defensive than the way Daryl Sutter was playing hockey last year. And I think one of the biggest changes we saw in Huberdeau last year, I was looking at it, the percentage of his starts in the offensive zone went from 78% in Florida to below 60% in Calgary. So I think now with a new coach in Ryan Huska and then just lower expectations across the board for Calgary, I feel like that's like a perfect kind of recipe for Huberdeau to succeed. So I loved Huberdeau this year, and seems like DeGen likes the Huberdeau bounce back as well, which is big.
So I actually went to go look for him a couple weeks back. He's not even on Prize Picks. I think he had such a bad year that didn't even put him on. So that's one thing, if that tells you anything.
Yeah.
But I honestly like, I'll have to look on other books for that one and just see what the lines are at, because that one's not even there. So
yeah,
maybe somewhere else will have it.
It's the biggest. I was looking, his point drop off is the biggest point drop off in the cap era from one season to the next, like 115 points to 55 points. Like that's obviously fucking substantial. So I think this year it can't get any worse. Thoughts on
That's
this
sick.
year from Matt to Frosty. I
Uh,
like Oldie on the Wild. I don't know if you've looked at this team or any of the Kaprizov props, but what are your thoughts there if you have any?
so the Wild are a team to me that I think they're all but just solidified at the 3 spot in that division. Um, I think Kaprizov underperformed last year. He was in my goat whale for his goals. He got injured that last like 3-week span and didn't hit it. And it was like 42 or something. I think he'll be right in between 40 and 50 goals this year, just under 100 points. I think that Boldy stepped up. I think he was rookie of the year, quote unquote. He was insane last year. That definitely the best young guy out there, and I think that'll definitely help. But I don't really know what to think of this Wild team as a whole this year. I kind of want to watch, and I was super high last year, got beat a little bit. I don't think they've changed much in my opinion. So it's a little harder for me to hop on that. I'm not on any overs for them, but I'm definitely not on unders. I just little hard to read for me. So
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
but
Have any award? I know you're talking before. You've had some award winners. Like people are asking Vesna, Norris. Do you have any of those winners for your bets this year?
I do. So unfortunately, I think you have to bet Bedard to win the Calder. It's only minus 140. That's the line, just so you know. That's ridiculous. The amount of slurping that everyone does on him. I mean, obviously you guys have seen it in the preseason. I don't like saying this, but he's probably gonna win it. Like I don't know. I don't think there's anyone that's gonna come close, to be honest. So, everyone's gonna play around him. They're gonna feed him, etc. But minus 140 is that should be minus 5,000. Like it should be the same odds as him to get picked first overall. So, he literally would have to like just die in the first game of the season to not win that award. So, that's obviously one. I will say I have 2 kind of longer shots that for one's plus 1,000, one's plus 1,500. So the Rocket is going to McKinnon this year.
I feel like we
Nathan
did this
McKinnon.
last year, didn't we?
I don't know.
No?
I wasn't
Was it
that. I
that
mean, I
high?
was on his over goals last year and it
Okay.
hit. It was like 30 something. And he had 42. But I this season, I think he has a little bit of a vengeance to come back and play. Uh, I also have heard straight from his mouth that he's scoring 60 and is pissed. So I think that losing in the first round last year after being cup champions, and knowing like what he left on the table, I think he's going to come out with a fucking vengeance. And uh I also think that knowing that Landeskog isn't coming back, they're going to be able to build a little bit more around that team. Also, um I think that Rantanen overperformed by scoring goals last year by like a lot. And I think that it's going to be McKinnon picking up that slack. So that's plus 1500. It's a long shot. I like his goals line at 39 and a half. I mean, obviously you can put a normal unit on that. Um, the other one, again, this is going back with my obviously Cale Makar is plus 160 to win the Norris. Uh, Miro is plus 1,000.
I love that fucking bet.
Dude, he plays the most minutes of anyone in the league by 6 or 7 minutes a night, which is ridiculous. That is unheard of in the NHL. Unheard of. And if he keeps doing that, the Stars play well. Plus 1,000 is ridiculous. I think he should be the second odds, and it should be like plus 300. So the value on that play, you can't ignore it. I think that just pure worth to his team. And honestly, and skill wise, like obviously, Cale Makar is the best defenseman in the league. He's not even close in my head in terms of skill. But Miro plays defense. He plays the most minutes a night of anyone in the league. He's not even close. And I mean, he's just solid. He's just a solid fucking defenseman. And I really think that he can put up a couple more points this year. Obviously, they're going to look into that. And that's why, I mean, Carlson. But
Yeah.
I think that is something that if he can get in the mix of points a little bit more, I think he could steal that one. So
Okay. Yeah. I really like that. That's what I was gonna say for people asking about the Norris Miro. I was also I have heard from, I don't know if it's necessarily from Makar camp, but that his lower body injury is actually worse than he's leading on to be. And he might miss some time at the beginning of the season if it's like continues to linger. So I was even thinking about taking Makar under points this year. I know that's really risky because you're kind of banking on him being hurt or missing games
yeah,
a little bit tougher. But I definitely wouldn't bet on him to win the Norris. Hearing that, like I think Heiskanen probably has a really good chance now at 10-1 or whatever the odds are for Vezina. One thing, like Sorokin still has not won a Vezina, and I know the Islanders like aren't in a great spot to succeed in such a tough conference, but he needs to win one soon because I think he's over the last 2 years still a top two, if not the best goalie in the NHL. So I wouldn't mind that at 5-1, and then also a flyer that I kind of like for the Vezina this year is Philip Gustafson on the Wild because I think he will take over that net. I think the Wild have a really strong D unit in front of them, playing in a like shittier division, apart from obviously playing Colorado and Dallas a bunch. You do get all those like shittier teams that are in the Central. So I think that's an interesting option too. Um, yeah, and then another player I love just because I've heard just unbelievable things from camp and how this power plays looked is Crosby over points. I think he's going to score more goals on the power play, especially with Gensel out. His 90 plus points on FanDuel is like minus 120. He had 93 last year, at 82 the season before in like 68 games. So I think this is a really solid pick. This is also like the last year I feel like Pittsburgh. I know everyone keeps saying this, but last year this team has like a real chance at doing anything kind of remotely that resembles a Stanley Cup run, if you want to go that far. And this power play is going to be insane. I mean, Carlson, Letang, Malkin, Crosby, and then Raquel, and then Gensel when he comes back. I've one of my buddies was in Halifax for that Pittsburgh Ottawa game today, and he was
yeah.
at the practice before watching the power play, and he's like, obviously it's practice and it's preseason, but fuck, do they look good already? So I that gives me a little bit more confidence too.
Yeah. I definitely was looking at those. I might stay away personally and just kind of be a viewer, but
Yeah,
I don't hate them by any means. So I'm not going to fade that. I'm not going to take the under, but I do think that the Pens could definitely pull off something this season. I got to see when Gensel comes back. I got to see how they mesh. I got to see the biggest factor in the entire league, maybe how Jari plays hockey. Because he went from a top 3 goalie in the league to a bottom 3 goalie in the league in one season.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's a good
um, that's going to be the biggest factor for me. So, now if you want the balls on the table two piece, and you
always.
guys love just gifting sports books your money. These two props are going to be making the sports books the richest on earth this year. Bedard over goals, McDavid over goals. We're fading both. We're taking both unders. Bedard at 30 and a half. Give me a fucking break for goals. Give me a fucking break. You're looking at the best the best goal scorers to ever come into the league. If you're looking at their first season, they're not putting up 30. McDavid's first 100-point season, he didn't even go over 30 and a half. He had 30, didn't get 31, he had 100 points. I'm not just tripping Bedard. I'm tripping McDavid too. 55 and a half is criminal. The dude puts up 40 goals consistently forever. 120 points, 130 points, whatever. I'm sorry. He's not going to go out there and just dance around and put up 60 for the rest of his time. That's not going to happen. He might put up 100 assists, and Draisaitl might put up a bunch, but McDavid isn't going to keep doing that. Bedard isn't going to do that his first season. I'll tell you what. I'm going to stay off his points line. I'm going to stick to the goals. I genuinely think, especially watching preseason for a few games, he's a playmaker. He's not scoring goals. He's got a good shot. He has probably the best shot any rookie has ever had, ever. But we saw him. He was looking past first half the time, and he couldn't finish. He could not finish. Even on breakaways, he could not finish. So I don't know. And I think he's going to have a tough time with these big NHL defensemen blocking shots too, because they know what he's going to do. He's just going to snap the puck. So I think these are way too high. I think these are going to be the best two guys in the league for the foreseeable future. But I think these lines this year are way too high. So I'm taking the under 55 and a half for McDavid, and I'm taking the under 30 and a half for Bedard on their goals. I think they're ridiculous. And I think everyone in the whole world is going to be like, oh, McDavid, 150 points last year, 55 goals over. Oh, Bedard, the best prospect ever. Over. Like, yeah, it's not that easy. I'm sorry. It's really not.
No, I think those are definitely more realistic expectations than I think a lot of like regular NHL fans will have, obviously, looking at these two guys. And you bring up a good point of like rookie goal scorers coming in the NHL first overall picks. Like, I think just looking at some of the stats now, the last two guys to do it, I think were Matthews and Laine to go over their goal total. But you have to remember, playing for in Winnipeg and Toronto your first year with other capable scorers is the biggest thing. Like Matthews had 40 goals in his rookie season, but he was playing with other really good hockey players. Like, not to disrespect Taylor Hall or Lucas Reichel, if I even want to go that far, but it's harder when you're pretty much trying to do it alone. And you could already see that he was trying to do it alone a little bit in the preseason. So I definitely don't hate that take. I think those are kind of, sports books are definitely laying those numbers out there to entice some people for sure. So I definitely don't hate that, but interesting that you think like no chance he gets anywhere near 30 goals, but you're fine with taking like his Calder number at like minus 140 just because of what, the assist number?
Yeah, that's why I'm. If you want to tail Bedard this year, I would take his points, not his goals. I just think I think the goals line is a bait. I mean, we're talking. I'm going to compare him to McDavid. He's the same, similar play styles. They're fast as shit. But I mean, McDavid's first real season where he played every game out 100 points, he had 70 assists. Like that's. I mean, I could see something very similar. I also think Lucas Reichel is disgusting.
Yeah, I think
So
he's really good too.
I think he's got some goal scorers with him. So that's just I don't know. I think you just got to stay away from that. Besides Matthews, which Matthews was brought in solely to score goals and was getting fed and playing defense. Bedard is small, fast. He's not a Matthews type player. He's a McDavid type player. But if you're looking at similar comparisons, I mean, even Hughes, this season was the first time he just broke 30. So
it's a good point.
Like that's, I think it's going to take some time, and he's going to need a better team around him. So
Nice. Yeah. And what about do you have any other unders for player totals that you want to talk about, or are those really like the main two that you have at this point?
It was those two and Olmark under wins were the three
Okay.
unders that I liked the best. And then Larkin over points, McKinnon over goals, and Hintz over points.
Hints over points. What's that
Yeah,
number?
yeah. 79.5. I think there's no shot in hell he doesn't break 80 this year.
Yeah, that is weird.
I think that's insulting in my head. So,
Um, I like that
um,
too. I
yeah.
also have I haven't bet it yet, but I think I am an Ovechkin under goals. I think is going to be on my card this year.
Dude, I can't bring myself to take that.
It's like I feel like a bad hockey fan cheering for this or doing this, but I just think this Washington team's done. Like Backstrom barely played last year. How long is he going to be able to stay healthy? I think Kuznetsov's like halfway out the door already. The band's just not back together. I know Carlson's kind of will be back there, but different new coach too. Laviolette's gone. I just feel like if this is the year to kind of fade and not take as many. And even looking at his stats last year, like sure he had 42 goals, but he wasn't as productive, I would say, maybe on the power play. If you look at compared to other years in the past where he's scored easily 50. So I think 40 is just really high for how late he is in his career at this point. I know he's like the best goal scorer of all time, but I just I'm out. I'm out on him right now. Do you have Yankee Will? Is this willing Sabres talk? Do you have anything to say about the Sabres?
Um, I do like the Sabres this year. I think that betting over point totals slash really anything besides like Tage goals is a
Yeah.
little bit sketchy just because they're right in the middle. Like I think the Bruins are going to come down but I think everyone got better except for one team. So I think it's just hard to tell right now. And they also juiced their line a little bit. I think it's a little bit higher than I would have liked.
Like to make the
I
playoffs?
no, the points, the
Oh, okay.
regular season points. So, but I don't think they're out of it by any means. I think they're going to make a case for the playoffs. I think they're going to make a case for the wild card. And I think that it's going to come down in my head to Levi. I think them and the Penguins are the biggest factors this year on if their goalie's good, they will do good. If their goalies aren't good, they're going to suck again. So, um, that's what my kind of 2 cents is there. But I'm excited to watch that team play. I'm really excited to watch that team play.
Yeah.
So them and
I
the Wings are going to be fun.
I think those are two teams that are going to really surprise some people this year. And the Sabres, I mean, the Sabres were close last year, but like you said, the goaltending just wasn't there. Like if they roll out Eric Comrie and fucking Jukka-Pekka Luukkonen again, and they're starting, like if Levi's not there from day one, then I think they're just unserious about winning this
No,
year.
he
So
should be. He should be there from day one.
yeah,
No doubt in my mind.
absolutely. So
So
yeah, their playoff line minus 106. That's interesting. I don't know if I would really lay it like that for an entire season, considering how
yeah.
like close it was last year. But Tage goals interesting for sure.
It's a
Um,
little high just
yeah,
because of how well he did last year. And he had what did he have 5 in that game or 6? He had 4 in the first period. But he
he's
had a
5.
few
Yeah,
games that were just ridiculously just adding and adding and adding and adding to that. So, but he does have more help this year in my head. And Darlene might make a case for Norris. So we'll see.
absolutely.
We'll see there. But yeah.
Um,
Um,
do you have anything else before we end the stream? Like last things you want to maybe touch on, or any other like big bold predictions you have?
really, I've two just I'm not gonna want to tie my money up in this for all season, but Canucks to not make the playoffs is minus 140.
Okay.
That is absolutely absurd. That is absurd. There's no shot in hell they make the fucking playoffs.
Really?
There's no shot.
I think they've got a little bit better, but there is still a lot of good teams in the West. So
There's no shot in hell they make the playoffs
okay.
in my head.
Okay.
So, and then plus 350, Sharks lowest points on the
Oh
season.
yeah. That's been on my bet list for a while.
Dude,
Like I'm trying to find the best line for it because FanDuel it's really low. I haven't heard a fucking peep about this team all off.
dude, I genuinely might put like 3 or 4 actual units the whole season at plus 350 and just sit there and make my money at the end of the year. Like that, I might be just as confident in that as I was in Kane's 100 points last year, and I put 50 G's on that. So
Wow.
like that was insane. So I think that should be minus money. Like there's no way. The Ducks also have, dude, the Ducks have the worst line in that. So
The Ducks do? Oh, really? On
the
FanDuel, the
Ducks
Sharks?
are on Caesars, the Ducks are plus 320 and the Sharks are plus 350.
Interesting. Hmm.
So I don't know. I need to shop it around obviously before I lock it in, but that
Um,
was
all right. Well, Freudy, I appreciate you coming on. This was the preview for Freudy's big NHL future show that's going on Wednesday. You'll
yep.
be able to
Wednesday,
uncover.
Wednesday I have 2 full pages of everything. I got division winners. I have leans on pretty much every single team for their points over under, award winners, everything. So
So be sure to check that. That's on Book It Sports Twitch, I'm assuming, right?
yeah, on Wednesday.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'd love to hear that. We'll definitely be tuning into that. Fruity, thanks for coming on and giving a peep at what the bigger notebook's going to look like. And definitely, if you tuned into this stream, be tuning in throughout the rest of the season because we're going to be doing a lot more of this. Last year we did streams like every Tuesday and Thursday, previewing the slates, giving out props, sides, totals, everything you name it. So be sure to follow us on Twitch and follow us on Twitter as well because that's where you'll see all the other notices. And tomorrow, 12 p.m., we'll be live again for Lines of Lunch. And we'll see you guys there. Thank you for tuning in.